In Parashat Pinchas, we have probably one of the greatest anomalies in the way the Torah would usually be written. The word shalom has a vav kti'ah, has a broken vav. The peace treaty, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a covenant of peace with Pinchas. Now, whether or not he was a Kohen, like the Zohar HaKadosh says, he was a Kohen, but he was supposed to be nullified because of the act that he did of killing someone, and now he was reinstated forever, or the conventional understanding that he was not part of the Kehuna because he was the oldest grandson of Aaron HaKohen, born before the crown of Kehuna was given to Aaron and his sons only, and their descendants after that. So he was kind of like left off, and now he was he merited to have Kehuna for himself and for his children afterwards. But the shalom is broken because sometimes, as we mentioned before, peace is accomplished through putting your foot down and insisting on a certain standard, not going with the flow of the communities, which is exactly what he did. Everyone was sitting by, standing by, watching, and not doing anything about it. And he was zealous, and he did it, and he got peace by breaking the so-called peace that was quiet community, not saying anything about the horrendous acts that was being done. Now, this is really mentioned in the Gemara, that it has to be like this. The Vav of Shalom, the Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin Daf Samech Vav, says regarding a completely different halacha, or how the Kohanim have to be, Shalem, and the Gemara says, well, it's not Shalem, it's Shalom. And the Gemara says, no, Vav de Shalom K'tiyai. The Vav of Shalom is written in a broken way. Now, is this an absolute or not an absolute? In the halachot of writing a Sefer Torah, it becomes questionable. The Rambam and the Ritba, for instance, they write that this is not a necessity. According to Rambam, the Temanim, if you take a look at the Sefer Torah of Temanim, the Vav is not even broken. It's written as a full Vav, right? Rabbi Akiva Eiger, he has a tshuva in Siman Ayin Hey, in his tshuvot, that discusses this, and he writes that the Chatchila has to definitely be broken. Of course, the Gemara says it, but he very much is mesupak if it renders the Sefer Torah pasul, right? So, but you have the Shita of Rambam, you have the Shita of the Ritba. Maybe it's not pasul, right? Actually, the Ashkenazim, unlike Sfaradim, they make like a small vav with a little break on the bottom, so it's still a vav on the top. Even it's kasher, right? The minhag of the Sfaradim in general, especially Iraqis, the Kaf Chaim and Ben Ish Chai, is they do not a straight cut, but a slanted cut in the middle of the vav. The vav is pasul really without. And be as it may, there is a tshuva that's brought in Pitchas Tshuva in Siman Resh Ayin Hey of Yorede'ah. Pitchas Tshuva brings the tshuva of I think it's Hagrami tells Hagrami tells, he brings his tshuva that he says absolutely pasul even b'di'evet. So even though the Kaf HaChaim writes that a person does not have to change a Sefer Torah if you find something like that, it's not a must that Sefer Torah is completely pasul, because you have the Rabbi Kiva b'di'evet, it will be kasher. If you can fix it up there right away, do. Otherwise, you don't have to necessarily bring a second Sefer Torah. But Hagrami tells us you absolutely must, because it's absolutely pasul. It says it explicitly in the Gemara, and that's the tshuva that the Pitchat Tshuva al Shulchan Aruch brings. So, hence, even though the Kaf HaChaim says you don't have to, it's not a must to bring out a different Sefer Torah. If you have handy another Sefer Torah, there's no problem with bringing a Sefer Torah. But again, this is a manifestation of one of those things that the way the Torah is written very much manifests the hanhaga of people. See, Chazal says sometimes you accomplish shalom, peace, by breaking the shalom. Sometimes the shalamut comes from insisting on standards, but as we mentioned before, sometimes it's exactly the opposite. The same person, according to the Tosafot in Masechet Ba'al Metzia Daf Kuf Yudalet, Pinchas Eliyahu. Pinchas turned into the second personality of what we know as Eliyahu Hanavi Zachur Letov, right? actually the gimatrias are very much interesting in this. If you do it, it's got a lot of bnei saschar and sfat emet that we've spoken about on Purim, if you remember. But nevertheless, at the end of his career, Eliyahu Navi wanted to be zealous again, and he lost his position because of that. Hashem said, "There's not always this time for zealousness and for kanaut. You have to be, in general, a calm, composed, and compassionate and caring leader. But sometimes the time calls for zealousness, and that is what Pinchas did over here, meriting an eternal covenant of peace, of shalom, Be'ezrat Hashem, for all of us. Chazak Baruch.